Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Haggerty 10, Tony Haggerty, and I'm joined once again by my trusty sidekick,
Oh.
GTW. And yes, we are one half of something, aren't we, Sean? I mean, little and large, hail and pace, call it what you like, two Ronnies, whatever. How you doing, Sean? You all right?
Not bad, I like that we interlude into a discussion about a central defensive partnership, basically. So it's not bad.
Correct.
I like that.
There was method in the madness there, Sean. But before we get to all business Celtic, we'll just do a wee business matter of our own. As you can see, guys, top and the bottom, £1 for 2 months if you subscribe to the Celtic Way. And if you visit celticway.co.uk/subscribe, you can do us all a favour and help keep me and Sean in the manner we're accustomed to, abject poverty and misery. So there you have it. But yeah, as you can see, then you subscribe to the Celtic Way. It's running along the bottom. You get it's £1 for the first 2 months, and you get some top quality journalism, supporting the club you love, or covering the club you love, and you get to see me and Sean as well on videos and read some of our articles too. There you go. Now, Sean, nice wee segue into talking about, as you say, our central defensive partnership.
Yep.
Now, Cameron Carter-Vickers has been the subject, supposedly, of interest from Leicester City and Wolves. Now, Celtic have, I believe, an option to buy on Cameron Carter-Vickers at the end of the season. Just depends on how much Spurs want and if the player wants to commit. What's your thoughts on that, Sean? We've said all along that it's going to be up to the players at the end of the season, and if the financial parameters are met, then Celtic will probably enter into a deal to sign both him and Jota, because they're both on an option to buy.
I mean, a lot of ones are saying one or the other. I'm sure that will come in the comments soon enough. But in terms of a Carter-Vickers permanent deal, I think obviously you say there, as we understand it, the club has an option to buy now. To me, that's patently obvious that the player doesn't have to agree a contract, even if Celtic make the fee. I thought that went without saying, although a quick glance at Twitter last night suggested people thought they'd maybe discovered the Holy Grail by pointing that out. If Leicester and Wolves or whoever do fancy taking them on, I think it almost becomes that decision between Champions League football, trophies, and let's be honest, a very decent wage at Celtic, or Premier League football, probably no Europe, because Wolves are in with a chance, and I think Leicester would probably need to win the Conference League to get European football next season, and more money down in England. There's every chance he does choose the latter, and I don't know how many people would necessarily blame him. That is where he probably saw himself playing his football when he was at Tottenham and the youth teams, and despite all these loans, I think there's probably still something within him that harbours that desire. I wouldn't necessarily blame him. Obviously up here we would all beat the drum that Champions League football and trophies should trump playing essentially mid-table Premier League football, even if it is for more money. But a slightly realistic look at it, he very well might choose the Premier League if that's what it comes down to.
Now, if it does come down to that, Sean, and he does go to the Premier League, then you have to say that it is about money, isn't it, at the end of the day?
It is, but there's also, I mean, for him, he's not been back in the USA squad yet. Despite how well he's been playing up here and how well he played in Europe, we might have an eye on that. It's obviously easier for players to get picked for the national team in the Premier League, but ultimately, there's a few comments coming in here. Ultimately, money talks. It does. I mean, it is not the be all and end all for everyone. You get players still these days, even though it's rare, that will place their own football progression over money. Carter-Vickers might still be one of them. He might decide at the end of the season he's just really enjoying it. He's progressed as a player. I think out of all his loan spells, you would argue this has been his most successful one if Premier League teams are actively looking at him to take him permanently. Even just in that sense, rather than the fact that he's won a trophy and he's been a consistent performer and playing a kind of more expansive style of football. But I think there's an example in the team now. Matt O'Reilly swapped. All right, Fulham were doing it at the Championship, but it was still a club that is quite a lot of money and all the parachute payments and the rest of it. And he was highly rated, and he was offered a 3-year deal when he said no. He wanted to go somewhere he'd be able to play football and progress his career rather than just for the money, that kind of thing. So players do some players anyway still pick that. So it's not a foregone conclusion that just because it's a Premier League team that's what he'll pick. You never know. He might like it enough up here that he does prioritise it.
I was going to say as well, I've spoken about this as well throughout the season. Personal happiness has a lot to do with it, Sean, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You touched upon there about personal progression, but I think if Celtic win the title and get into the Champions League, I'm with Chilpel on this one. Really want a shot at the Champions League with Ange and this, and as I referred to before, this magic carpet ride that Celtic are on with Ange. You know, and I just think that it seems a no-brainer, because that's the stage you ultimately want to take your career to, isn't it? The Champions League. And as we touched upon yesterday, Celtic wouldn't stop those players from moving if they do play in the Champions League and they turn up and they perform, and then somebody comes in further down the line. You would say, okay, fair enough. You know,
what do you think of that? I'm going to put that right up for you there. You think that's realistic, given Celtic's centre-back recruitment in recent years, or
what's realistic?
That they could find a better one than Carter-Vickers right away at the start of next season, summer?
Not for £6 million, if that's the kind of price that they're being quoted for Carter-Vickers. I think Carter-Vickers is a decent buy for £6 million. David,
I remember, innit? Julian was $7 million.
Yeah, so. Yeah. But I'm not so sure that they could find better at this moment in time, because I think he's performed solidly. He looks like every inch a rugged defender, and you know, pretty unflappable at times. I guess in Europe his deficiencies have been exposed, but he's played against some decent caliber teams. Mm-hmm. But he will progress and he will get better and he will improve. So I just think that, there you go, continuity is important in any team, says John Curry, especially in defence. Carter-Vickers has been composed and solid as a rock for us this season. I sign him right away. But can we afford the wages he'll get elsewhere? Well, that's the question that Celtic will need to answer come the end of the season, Sean.
The first part of that is what I'm going to concentrate on rather than the wages thing, because I think we all probably know that an English team in the Premier League they can trump Celtic if they want to, that kind of thing. But to concentrate on the first one, that's something you know yourselves. I've brought up plenty of times this season. So this is where I think it's probably useful to talk about the partnership that the two, Carter-Vickers and Starfelt, have developed so far. I mean, even just looking at the two of them from a statistical point of view, I mean, we all had were critical elements for particularly Starfelt earlier in the season. You're sitting 30 games into the league campaign, and just taking that, I mean, not Europe necessarily, because I think that's almost a false reflection, given the way the games have gone in Europe a lot of the time. The 30-game kind of sample of the league. I mean, Starfelt makes more tackles, makes more interceptions, but he's also dribbled past more often than Carter-Vickers, which I don't think will necessarily surprise anyone. Neither will the fact that Carter-Vickers is better in the air, although I would argue Starfelt has been improving that since earlier in the season. I'd a wee look, Starfelt's top 10, or I suppose you would say bottom 10, for errors that lead to a shot, but even that, it's only been like 2 in the league this season. It's not been as if he's given away a shot every game, that kind of thing. Carter-Vickers doesn't chart for that at all, it's worth noting. Star wasn't a dig at Starfelt, was just pointing out Carter-Vickers just doesn't really give them up like that, but he's slightly at Carter-Vickers, slightly better at helping win the ball back in terms of pressing. They're both the top 2 for passing accuracy in general, which I don't think, again, will surprise anybody given how much Celtic have the ball and how much of that starts with the centre-back. Starfelt's actually slightly better in terms of how many passes or his passing accuracy, but Carter-Vickers shades it for passing it forwards a wee bit more. Again, I don't think I'm saying anything that people would think, oh, that doesn't sound right. I think most people, that is probably what they think they've seen this season from the two of them. All that's to say that overall, I think they're actually becoming quite a good partnership.
That a bit like yourself and myself, Sean?
Surprisingly,
people on the Celtic way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What one's which? That's what I'd ask. But,
we'll roll about the floor at some point and we'll decide that one.
Overall, I think they're becoming quite a good partnership. Starfelt, I would make the case as the more difficult end of the deal, because he's got to play left centre back as a right footer in a kind of possession dominant team. but he's grown into that role as well as the season goes on. And this is where I'm coming back to that thing I've been saying all season, which kind of changed with what John Curry's saying there. It all comes back to that Ange quote that I mentioned constantly about centre-backs, that it's the one area of his size that he doesn't really want to have to rotate if he can avoid it. It's the one area that he said himself that he doesn't feel you can get away with rotating regularly. I think he used the word it kind of struggle. You struggle if you have to rotate your centre-backs. So I think that's part of it. I wrote, Christ, it must have been back in about September, end of September, something like that. I used that quote to write about why I thought sticking to the same two centre-backs as often as possible would be the key to getting some consistency, because there was some rocky moments early in the season at the back.
Yeah.
I think at the time he'd used 6 different centre-back combinations in his first 14 games. Now it's nowhere near that now. That the two of them start the majority of games. So I'm going to claim that piece as a win.
Is that an assist? Another assist you're claiming, Sean? Yeah. Your assists are pretty good this season, I would conjecture. I'd like to see your depth chart on that.
Hey.
No, but I mean, I get that. Is it going to come down to money, ambition, happiness, multiple choice answer, all of the above? I think for Carter-Vickers, isn't it? You know, we know English clubs can blow Celtic out the water with the wages that they can offer. We know that playing it in the English Premiership is more prestigious than playing in the Scottish Premiership. But as you say, there is no direct entry or path into the Champions League, which is the highest level you can play at for any club. And also that could put you in the shop window again to get the move to England if you're so desperate to crave that further down the line. And also it can put you in the international manager's plans if you're playing at that top level in the Champions League. So Carter-Vickers has got a lot to think about, really, hasn't he? As do Celtic.
I mean, he is only 24. You've got to remember. It feels like he's maybe a wee bit older than that, but he is still quite young. As is, Starfelt's only 26. I don't think he's turned 27 yet. He might have. But apart from Joe Hart, the kind of starting defence, whether you pick Ralston or Juranovic himself is only 26. So Ralston's 22, 23. Taylor's only 24. They're all fairly good ages. It's not like you're absolutely like it's his last chance to move, or to get his Celtic Premier League team. I don't think it wasn't even just Champions League football I was talking about with Wolves, unless it was any sort of European football. It looks. I mean, Wolves could theoretically catch up automatic places to get into Europe. Obviously, it won't be the Champions League. Leicester, I think, would need to win the Conference League, though. They're sitting just below mid-table. So there is that. I think that could come into it, but it all depends on the player. It all depends on their attitude. Ange, there's a few comments that Ange Postecoglou's mentioned. More than one said it at the first window, said it at the second window. He'll say it again in the summer. He's not going to ask or force people to try and stay. They'll need to want to be here, which is fair enough, and it's as good a mantra as any to have.
He doesn't want. He's not going to beg players to stay. They either want to be part of something or not, and he's said all along as well that he's trying to build something. If you don't want to be part of that, then you will move on. And if Carter-Vickers at the end of the season indicates that he doesn't want to be part of it, they won't sign him. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It is, aye. I mean, that is. I've just noticed in the comments. I knew it would come in. I'm going to throw it to you.
Thank you very much, Sean. Oh, wow. Do you know what? I just think I would say Jota. My instinct's to say Jota, but only because I was a front man and a winger and an entertainer now and again.
Some would say still an entertainer.
I have an affinity for guys that entertain and can score goals and that are creative and productive. And I just think the Celtic fans have taken to him. But I like Carter-Vickers. That's not any slight on Carter-Vickers. I really do like him. But I think if we had a choice between one or the other, I would take Jota. But that's just me personally.
I would probably agree, right? But I'm going to play devil's advocate. I could make a case for Carter-Vickers over Jota. I think Jota could win games. I think there's an American expression that defence wins championships, and Carter-Vickers has been instrumental and that kind of defence that Celtic's put together, I think there's an argument to be made there. I think, and I'm not saying this because I was also a winger, although I did a shift at sweeper more than once. Okay, but I think probably it's Jota. I think he's got also in a business sense, probably get the greater resale value if you sign him. He's got a higher ceiling in terms of the level he can reach. You remember, this is essentially, you could say this is his first full senior season of non-stop first team football, and look at the kind of stuff that he's done already so far. Playing at Celtic suits him, attacking all the time. Not that he doesn't put in the work off the ball, he does, but he's got that kind of license to basically you're attacking every team you play. So no, I think you're probably right. It is probably Jota, but I can see why people have made it a discussion.
I'm just laughing at this comment. Yeah, only when Celtic are 3 or 4 up and they can start showboating, that's fine. They can do their bonus, but until then, business as usual to get the win. But George Michael,
what's your opinion on this? This is actually a fair, another way to think on it. It's a fair point. Maybe we put too much onus on the fact that Celtic can offer European football, Champions League football, rather than the week in, week out riches. It's a fair point, I think.
I think it's a great point. Yeah, I don't know if it would sway someone. It's down to a player's personal preference, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think that playing in the Champions League is the pinnacle at club level for any player, and to play for a team like Celtic in the Champions League is a big carrot to be dangled in front of anybody. That's just my thoughts. I just think if you can get it right with Celtic in the Champions League, why would you want to play anywhere else? That's just my own personal thoughts, because there's very few clubs where you can enjoy the likes of European football. Like a club like Celtic, if you get it right. And I mean, going in there and not just being cannon fodder. I mean, getting in and competing and being successful in a kind of Martin O'Neill era type style. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
There's precedents there. I mean, there's obviously, there's obviously, I mean, the biggest one's Henrik Larsson in our lifetimes, probably that repeatedly didn't even really look down south until after he'd left. That kind of thing. Obviously, the gap in what you can pay is even greater now than what it was when Larsson. But it was still there when Larsson was playing. But it's not. You can't. There's only so much you can blame. If you take the looking at it through the prism of, well, this is Celtic, why would you not want to play for Celtic? That kind of thing. If you try and look out with that for a while, there's only so far you can blame someone for choosing the kind of greater contract. And I would never really blame someone for it, especially somebody that's not a dyed-in-the-wool Celtic fan that doesn't have the emotional connection. But there are exceptions. There still are players that will prioritise that. I think it might be being a wee bit of a dreamer there, but it's there are players there that do that.
But I think Carter-Vickers is in a brilliant position. There is interest from him down south. If he really wants to go back down south, he will do that. But he knows up here he's got a place where he's happy and he's pretty loved. The Celtic fans have taken to him really quickly. And again, if they win the title, then he knows he'll be playing Champions League football and he can tick a few boxes in the ambition scale, and take it from there. And it's really up to him what happens after that, isn't it? So I think he's got a cracking, he's in a brilliant position for himself personally. And it's a win-win for him, really, isn't it? Between now and the end of the season.
I mean, this is what a loan spell's meant to do. It's not necessarily meant to end with you joining the club you're on loan at. If you're at like Celtic have used it. I mean, I wrote a piece again about the Montgomery going to Aberdeen, and even if he doesn't come back and earn a place in the Celtic first 11, if he's developed as a player, developed as a guy, and then carves out a career in Scottish football or elsewhere, that still should be considered a win for Celtic's academy in different things. Just because they don't make the first team doesn't mean it's a failure. Loan spells can be a success in a myriad of ways. It doesn't necessarily need to end with him either joining Celtic in terms of Carter-Vickers. It doesn't need to end with him joining Celtic or even going back and getting a game at Tottenham for it to have been a success for him. It just needs to have improved his situation, improved him as a player and a person, and it looks as if it's going to have done that whether he joins Celtic or not.
Indeed. I totally agree with that, yeah. But going back to Starfelt.
Yep.
Is he entering the realms of Super Swede, Cool Swede, all that kind of stuff that we've spoken about of previous Swedish players, Sean? Because he has divided opinion, hasn't he, since he came in?
He has, aye. I mean, there's a bit of revisionism going on with him as well, because I think the criticism, all right, some people went over the top, but for the majority of the time, it was because there was an error there, or because there was a bit of hesitation, or because he was still getting used to the system, and it was only natural to point it out. So the revisionism that he's always been absolutely fine is pretty much nonsense, to be honest. But he has definitely improved. I said that earlier. Statistically, you can see that he's improved as well, looking at the data. But you can see by the eye test as well, he's more confident. He's got used to the system a wee bit more. As I say, I would argue that him having to play left centre back as a right footer in this kind of system means that it's a harder job that he's also got to do. And I think I appreciate that a wee bit. So no, I think he's, as I say, the two of them have developed into a decent wee partnership. So no, more power to him. He's improving. He's embraced that role. He was even shouting and bawling at people for not moving quick enough so he could pass the ball to them at Armandville, which was a nice wee spot. So no, fair enough.
He's looked, both Carter-Vickers and Starfelt looked very composed when they had the majority of the ball at the back in the past two games, moving forward and dictating play. I said, acting like kind of playmakers. And he was quite comfortable in the last two games doing that, Sean.
He has. That's where the kind of training ground stuff and the more that he works with Ange is obviously, I think you can see it coming into his game, because as I say, earlier in the season you could tell it wasn't what he was used to, and it wasn't what he was necessarily good at. Also in the air, although his better games earlier in the season came with the kind of more physical tasks. I remember the first Glasgow derby, we both said, even though Celtic had lost, it was arguably one of his better games because he was just asked to be the kind of defender, if you know what I mean. Early in the season, his statistics for winning the ball in the air and stuff, it wasn't actually that great, but he's improved in that sense as well. So all round, I can see why so many people are coming round to him now. I'm coming round to him myself, and I think the two of them together are winning a lot of admirers as a pair as much as individually.
You speaking about Cameron Carter-Vickers and Starfelt, or are you speaking about me and you there? I mean, a lot of admirers or followers or whatever you call them, or losing a lot of admirers and followers, possibly, Sean. Yeah, but no, I think it's an interesting debate, isn't it? The Carter-Vickers and Jota. Who do you keep out the two? I'd prefer to keep them both, Sean. In an ideal world, that's what I would want ideally, but it depends, doesn't it? And the manager will be scouting around, and he'll have done his homework. And if neither of those two players sign, he'll have somebody in mind to come in and fill that void. It's just the way he goes about his business, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to put this up purely because I had already looked at it before I come on. That was why I was saying Carter-Vickers passes it forward a wee bit more. I think in terms of like the eye test and just what you see, I would argue out of the two of them, Carter-Vickers is more capable of playing a kind of line-breaking pass. But when it actually comes down to the statistics, I've got them written here. Cameron Carter-Vickers passes it backwards more often. Starfelt passes it sideways more often, and Carter-Vickers passes it forward more often. So take from that what you will. It's pretty even to me, to be honest. There's not much between the two of them, regardless. But that is how you would break it down for that. Now I would argue with the eye test that Carter-Vickers just gets slightly more to in his locker for a line breaking pass, but there's very little between them in terms of the actual stats.
We could talk about this all day, Sean. Sadly, and we could probably get the comments coming in all day as well. Mm-hmm. But we do have to.
Good though. Good.
Oh, exactly. I'm enjoying that. I would talk about it all day. Yeah. But sadly, we do have to end the broadcast. But thanks for your contributions, guys. Thanks, Sean. Yep. And as I say, if you look at the top and the bottom of the screen, you'll see the £1 for 2 months if you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to do it, so you visit celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and you'll be able to see myself and Sean more or less on a daily basis on videos like this and having enjoyment and talking about the club you love. And again, if you see at the bottom of the screen here, if you subscribe, you'll get some top quality journalism following and contributing to the club that you love. Thanks very much, guys. Really enjoyed that today. It was a quick 25 minutes as well. We shall reconvene tomorrow and do it all over again. Can't wait for that. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for your contribution, guys. Have a good day.
Cheers, Tori. Cheers, Trips.